Queen Liz would like to present to you the AI story, The Charity of Thorns, a guide to trading a scumbag for a billionaire. The Charity of Thorns, a guide to trading a scumbag for a billionaire, is incredibly evocative. It suggests a journey that is both beautiful and sharp, perfectly setting the stage for Elara's transformation. From scumbag-era chaos to a billionaire upgrade, witness Elara's jaw-dropping evolution. We're trading dive bars and regrets for the silent luxury of silk and private jets. This isn't just a makeover, it's a high-stakes blueprint for a total identity overhaul. Can you really leave the thorns behind to claim the throne? Watch the ultimate lifestyle glow-up that proves anyone can rewrite their story. The contrast is sharp, the results are pure gold. Your upgrade starts here.
Mark didn't look up. He just swirled his Cabernet, the condensation dripping like the sweat on his brow. "It was a trauma response, Elara," he muttered, his voice slick with unearned pity. "Vanessa was having a panic attack about her inheritance. I was just grounding her." "Grounding her? You were practically exfoliating her." Elara stood, her chair screeching against the marble like a dying bird. Vanessa let out a jagged, practiced sob, tucking her face into the crook of Mark's neck. "See? She's attacking me again. I'm an orphan, Elara. Do you know how hard it is to find a high thread count shoulder to cry on?" Aunt Martha slammed her wine glass down. "Sit down, Elara. Your bitterness is curdling the ricotta. If you can't be a big enough person to share your fiancé during a family crisis, perhaps you aren't billionaire material after all." Elara looked at the three of them, the traitor, the parasite, and the architect. Suddenly, the lasagna didn't just look lukewarm, it looked like her future if she stayed. She grabbed the edge of the mahogany table, her knuckles white. "You're right, Martha. I am self-sufficient." Elara tipped her water goblet directly onto Vanessa's head. "Consider this your first lesson in liquid assets." "The spiders in the garage have better social etiquette than this table," Elara said, her voice dropping to a dangerous, icy calm. She reached for her purse, but Aunt Martha snatched it, her manicured claws digging into the leather. "You aren't leaving until you apologize to Vanessa for making her feel unwelcome in your relationship," Martha hissed. Vanessa peeked over Mark's shoulder, a single, curated tear tracing a path through her bronzer. "It's okay, Auntie. Elara just doesn't understand that love is a fluid resource. Mark says my energy is expansive. Yours is just mid." Mark nodded solemnly, as if he'd just delivered a sermon. "It's true, Elara. You're very fixed mindset. Vanessa is growth-oriented." "Growth-oriented?" Elara laughed, a sharp, jagged sound that cut through the smell of garlic and betrayal. "She's a botanical parasite. She doesn't grow, she entangles." She yanked her bag back with such force that Martha stumbled into the centerpiece. Elara didn't check to see if the candles tipped. She didn't care if the house burned down, as long as she wasn't the one holding the fire extinguisher for once. As she slammed the heavy oak door, the cold winter air hit her like a reset button. She walked toward her beat-up sedan, the heels of her shoes clicking a funeral march for her old life. She didn't just want to leave, she wanted to vanish. "Keep the fiancé," she whispered to the empty driveway. "I'm trading the scumbag for a kingdom." Julian didn't just hold the ladder, he anchored it, his presence radiating a quiet authority that made the frantic ballroom air feel suddenly still. He reached up, his fingers brushing against hers as he tucked a stray, rebellious white orchid back into the mesh. "Lilies are for funerals, Elara," he said, his gaze dropping to the faint smudge of green floral tape on her cheek. "You look more like a bird of paradise, vibrant, sharp, and slightly out of place in this sea of beige." Elara wiped her cheek, leaving a smear of dirt that only made her eyes look brighter. "Is that the venture capital version of a pickup line?"
comparing women to expensive foliage? It's an observation, Julian countered, leaning back against a marble pillar as she climbed down. He didn't look away, even as several socialites in shimmering sequins circled him like hungry sharks. Most people here treat flowers like wallpaper. You're wrestling them into submission. It's far more entertaining. I'm not wrestling, I'm negotiating, she corrected, dusting off her apron. The lilies wanted to be on the floor, and I reminded them they were being paid to be horizontal. Julian chuckled, a low vibration that seemed to buzz in the space between them. I appreciate a good negotiator. My employees, your ex-fiancé among them, usually just crumble when the pressure hits. Mark, isn't it? The one who thinks risk management means wearing a seatbelt in a parked car? Elara froze. The mention of Mark felt like a splash of cold water, but Julian's dismissive tone was a strange, intoxicating balm. You know Mark? I know his spreadsheets. They're as imaginative as a brick, Julian said, taking a step closer. The scent of sandalwood and expensive ink replaced the cloying aroma of the flowers. He told me he was taking a sabbatical for his soul. I assume that's code for losing his mind? It's code for a coat closet and a cousin, Elara snapped before she could stop herself. Julian's eyebrows shot up, a predatory glint appearing in his dark eyes. A coat closet? Truly? The man has the palate of a toddler. He trades a diamond for, what, a synthetic pashmina? He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a small, heavy card. I don't usually hire florists to fix my firm, Elara, but I think I need someone who knows how to handle thorns. Come to my office Monday. We'll discuss a different kind of growth.
Julian didn't just occupy space, he commanded it. Over 6 months, he dismantled Elara's defenses with a surgical precision that made Mark's soul bonding look like a playground crush. When he presented the midnight blue orchids, he didn't hand them to her. He had them woven into a living wall in her new studio. You remembered, she whispered, tracing the velvet petals. I don't forget assets, Elara, especially the ones that are priceless, Julian murmured, his breath warm against her neck. When the tension finally snapped in his penthouse, the contrast was staggering. Julian moved with a deliberate, haunting confidence. As he pulled her close, Elara realized that if Mark was a flickering candle, Julian was a controlled forest fire. You're overthinking, Julian rasped, his hands steadying her as they moved toward the bed. I'm just not used to this, she admitted, her heart hammering. The intensity, it's a lot. Julian paused, lifting her chin so she had no choice but to see the raw focus in his eyes. Mark was a dial-up connection in a fiber-optic world, Elara. He was noise. I'm the signal. Stop settling for static. The night that followed was a revelation. It wasn't just physical. It was an erasure of every insecurity her family had spent decades installing. Julian didn't just comfort her, he worshipped the very self-sufficiency Martha had called a defect. Don't you dare go quiet on me, he whispered, into the heat of the moment. I want every bit of that fire. By dawn, Elara looked at her reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows. The scumbag era wasn't just over, it was prehistoric. She wasn't a girl hiding in the woods with geese anymore. She was the woman at the side of the man who owned the woods. Julian looked down at Mark, then back at the sourdough loaf, his expression one of mild scientific curiosity. Mark, if your career can be dismantled by your ex-girlfriend's choice of beverage, it wasn't a career. It was a hobby, and a poorly managed one at that. He has sensitive nerves, Vanessa wailed, clutching a breadstick as if it were a rosary. The sight of Elara in designer silk is triggering his cortisol levels. It's practically assault. Aunt Martha stood, her pearls rattling like a warning from a rattlesnake. Mr. Vane, you don't understand. Elara is difficult. She's too independent. She doesn't know how to nurture a man's ego. Mark needs someone soft, someone who doesn't remind him of his own failures by existing so loudly.
Julian's grip on Elara's shoulder tightened, not in restraint, but in a claim. I don't want my ego nurtured, Martha. I want it challenged. And as for Mark's triggers, Julian pulled a sleek obsidian smartphone from his pocket. I've seen the Q3 spreadsheets he submitted. The only thing triggering about Mark is his inability to use basic formulas. He isn't intimidated by Elara. He's intimidated by long division. Mark let out a sound like a deflating balloon. I'm an artist. Numbers are just suggestions. Well, I have a suggestion for you, Julian said, his voice dropping to a terrifying, velvet-wrapped edge. My security team is currently clearing out your desk. We found 3 jars of artisanal beard wax and a guide to crypto polyamory in your drawer. You're not just fired, Mark. You're deleted. Elara took a long, slow sip of her margarita, the salt sparkling in the light of the restaurant. Don't forget the garage, Mark. I hear the spiders are looking for a roommate. Just try not to soul bond with them too quickly. They have standards.
And just so we're clear, Julian added, his voice dropping to a register that made the silverware on the table hum. The mold has a higher IQ and a better work ethic than you, Mark. It actually knows how to spread. Mark's jaw dropped, a stray crumb of sourdough falling onto his fast-fashion tie. You can't do that. I have rights. I have a vision board in that cubicle. Your vision board is 80% pictures of jet skis and 20% pizza coupons, Julian countered, his eyes flickering with amused disdain. I've had it incinerated. The smoke was surprisingly greasy. Vanessa let out a gasp that sounded like a squeaky toy being stepped on. Julian? Can I call you Julian? You're being so linear. Mark is a dreamer. He's a poet of the private sector. He's a squatter in a suit, Elara corrected, leaning back into Julian's solid warmth. And Vanessa, honey, your lash extensions are starting to peel. It looks like a spider is trying to escape your eyelid. Maybe focus on your own growth mindset before you lecture the man who literally owns your boyfriend's oxygen. Aunt Martha reached for the margarita, but Elara deftly slid it out of reach. No, Martha. This is a billionaire tier beverage. It's too acidic for people who defend coat closet infidelities. It might melt your pearls. You've changed, Elara, Martha hissed, her face turning a shade of purple that clashed with her polyester shawl. You used to be so manageable. I was hungry, Elara said, looking up at Julian with a sharp, radiant smile. Now I'm fed. And Julian, about that basement? Julian smirked, pulling out his phone. Already done. Mark, your new office is sub-level 4. It's right next to the boiler. If you hear rhythmic chanting, don't worry. It's just the maintenance crew. Or the mold. They're very soul-bonded down there. Julian steered Elara toward the exit, leaving the table in a cloud of stunned silence and cheap perfume. As the valet brought around the sleek, matte black supercar, Elara felt the last tether to her scumbag era snap. Wait! Mark shouted, stumbling out of the restaurant. What about my LinkedIn endorsement? Julian didn't even look back. I'll write it now. Mark is exceptionally gifted at standing near magnets. Good night, Mark. The Amalfi sun dipped low, turning the Mediterranean into a liquid sapphire that matched the stones on Elara's fingers. Julian took her hand, his thumb tracing the upgrade he'd promised 2 years ago. I checked the communal text one last time, Julian whispered, his lips brushing her ear as the scent of lemon groves drifted over the terrace. Apparently, Vanessa is currently healing via a therapeutic retreat to a budget motel in Scranton. Mark is there too, acting as her emotional support human and part-time bellhop. Elara laughed, the sound carrying over the cliffside. A budget motel? I thought her grief required at least a 4-star thread count. The growth mindset took a hit when the inheritance ran out, Julian joked. They sent a bill for the emotional labor of not attending. I had my lawyer frame it. Suddenly, Julian's mother, a woman who wore diamonds like they were casual Friday attire, swept over and folded Elara into a hug that smelled of Chanel and genuine affection. "Darling, the centerpieces are divine. If I see one more person cry from joy, I'm going to have to start charging for tissues. You've truly outdone yourself." "Thank you, Eleanor," Elara smiled. "It's amazing what you can design when you aren't worried about someone vibrating in a coat closet." "A coat closet? How pedestrian," Eleanor sniffed, handing Elara a glass of vintage Cristal. "We only vibrate in the ballroom, dear. It's much more dignified." As the fireworks began to bloom over the coastline, Elara looked at the crowd, her real family. No gaslighting, no garlic knots, just a circle of people who celebrated her personality defect of being self-sufficient. "To the scumbag era," Elara toasted, raising her glass toward the dark horizon where her past lay buried. "And to the billionaire bliss," Julian added, pulling her close as the sky exploded in gold. "The throne looks good on you, Elara, but the spite is breathtaking."
And honestly, Mark, Julian added, his voice cutting through the silence like a guillotine, the library was much more productive than your magnets convention. We actually managed to achieve a positive north-south polarity. Vanessa let out a sound like a dying tea kettle. The gutter guy understood my trauma. He didn't just clean the leaves, he cleaned my soul. He's a high school dropout named Gary, Mark sobbed, his knees buckling on the pristine Italian tile. He drives a truck with one headlight and a bumper sticker that says, "I'd rather be fishing." My legacy is being replaced by a man who thinks trout are a personality trait. Elara took a graceful sip of her sparkling cider, her eyes dancing. At least Gary has a job, Mark, even if it involves leaves. It's a step up from magnet enthusiast and professional griever. Security, Julian signaled with a flick of his wrist. Two men who looked like they were carved from granite appeared instantly. "Please escort our uninvited guests back to their, what was it, a budget motel? Make sure they get a room with a view of the dumpster. It seems to be Mark's natural habitat." "You'll regret this," Vanessa shrieked as she was hoisted into the air. "My twins will be Gary's," Elara finished with a wink. "Good luck with the child support on a gutter cleaner's salary. I hear the growth mindset is very helpful for budgeting." As the heavy oak doors slammed shut on their screams, the orchestra transitioned seamlessly into a triumphant waltz. Julian turned to Elara, his hand resting gently on her stomach. "Twin boys," he whispered, a rare, genuine softness breaking through his CEO armor. "I suppose we'll have to build a bigger library." "Only if we keep the magnets away from it," Elara teased, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I don't want any anomalies in their education."
Elara swirled her crystal, the bubbles catching the sunlight like tiny, expensive stars. She looked at Martha, then at Mark, who was currently trying to blend in by hiding behind a topiary shaped like a giraffe. He was wearing a suit that appeared to be held together by staples and desperation. "Gutter Kevin?" Elara asked, her voice as smooth as the silk on her skin. "Is that the official name on the birth certificate? It has a certain industrial grit to it." "It's a family name, from Gary's side," Vanessa snapped, emerging from behind Martha. She was pushing a stroller that squeaked with every step, the wheels vibrating in a way that felt hauntingly familiar. "And he needs the braces, Elara. His teeth are coming in at a 45-degree angle. The dentist says it's structural defiance." Julian appeared at Elara's side, handing her a fresh strawberry. He didn't even look at the guests. He just stared at the gold-plated slide. "I heard a rumor that a spreadsheet thief was on the premises. Mark, are you still hungry? I believe the koi pond has some high-protein algae you might enjoy." Mark stepped out from behind the giraffe, his face flushed. "It was an artisanal ham and Gruyere sandwich, Julian. It was calling to me. It had more charisma than my entire marriage." "So does a bowl of lukewarm lentils," Elara retorted. She leaned in closer to Martha, the scent of her $1,000 perfume making the older woman wince. "You told me I was a personality defect for being self-sufficient, Martha. You told me to be a quieter person.
So I'm going to be very quiet now while Julian's security team shows you where the exit is. It's the large, expensive gate, the one you aren't allowed to touch. But the braces, Vanessa wailed. The structural defiance. Tell Gary to climb a few more ladders, Julian suggested, finally making eye contact. And Mark, I've left a parting gift for you at the gate. It's a box of magnets. Maybe you can finally find your true north, because it's clearly not here. As the family was ushered away, Mark was seen trying to pocket a handful of luxury catering shrimp. Elara just laughed, leaning into Julian. The Scumbag era wasn't just a memory. It was the comedy special of the year.
Extra money into a trust for the twins, and a very expensive legal team. The legal team has one very specific job, Elara continued, tapping a manicured nail against her chin. They've been instructed to sue anyone named Martha, Mark, or Vanessa who steps within 50 feet of my property for aesthetic trespassing. It's a very niche, very expensive field of law. Martha's mouth hung open, looking like a cavern of missed opportunities. Aesthetic trespassing? Elara, we're blood! You're being efficient again. It's a defect, remember? Elara winked, turning to watch Julian hoist one of the twins onto his shoulder. Mark, seeing his window of opportunity closing, lunged for a tray of Wagyu sliders passing by. Julian didn't even look over. He simply extended a leg, tripping Mark, with the effortless grace of a man who pays for premium gravity. Mark hit the grass face first, his hands landing empty. The sliders are for guests, Mark, Julian said calmly, not for spreadsheet monkeys with wandering hands. And Vanessa? Tell Gutter Kevin I'll send him a gift. Vanessa's eyes lit up with predatory hope. A check? No, Julian smirked. A magnetic compass. Maybe he can find his father. I hear Gary's currently cleaning the gutters of a motel in Scranton. He's missed you both. Or at least he's missed having someone to hold the ladder. It turns out, Julian continued, his voice dropping to a terrifyingly pleasant baritone, that forgetting a secondary will in a kitchen drawer isn't just a senior moment, Martha. It's a felony. My investigators found the original document tucked between your coupons and your collection of stolen hotel soaps. Martha's face went from pale to a sickly, translucent green. That drawer was jammed! It was a structural issue with the cabinetry! The only thing jammed is your future, Elara added, reaching out to adjust the tiny silk bow tie on the twin in Julian's left arm. We're seeking full restitution, with interest, adjusted for inflation, and adjusted for the sheer audacity of making me eat lukewarm lasagna while you sat on my parents' legacy. Mark looked up from the grass, his eyes wide. Wait, if she has to pay back the inheritance, does that mean the budget for my magnet museum is gone? Mark, your magnet museum is a cardboard box in a garage, Julian said, shifting the twins with effortless strength. And as of 4 minutes ago, the garage has been foreclosed upon. The bank is sending a team. I believe they specialize in scumbag removal. Vanessa let out a shriek that set off the nearby fountain's sensors. You're monsters! You're literal silk-wearing monsters! No, Elara said, taking one of the boys from Julian and kissing his forehead. We're just billionaires with a very long memory. Now, please leave. The twins are about to have their organic, gold leaf-dusted nap, and your presence is lowering the property value. Family is a bond, Martha, not a legal shield for grand larceny, Elara said, checking her reflection in the silver platter of a passing waiter. You treated me like a bug on the windshield of your life. Now consider me the windshield. Julian leaned in, the twins giggling as they grabbed for his silk tie. The back rent alone covers the next 30 years of Gutter Kevin's structural defiance treatments. We've already frozen your accounts. I hope you kept those stolen hotel soaps. They're about to be your only assets. You can't freeze our accounts, Mark yelled, finally standing up and brushing grass off his cheap polyester slacks. I have $300 in Dogecoin. That's my retirement. It was $300, Julian corrected, glancing at his watch. I shorted the coin 10 minutes ago. It's now worth roughly the price of a garlic knot.
which coincidentally is all you're getting for dinner. Vanessa grabbed Martha's arm, her neon pink lashes fluttering in a panic. Mom, do something! Tell them about my trauma! Tell them I'm an orphan in spirit! The only spirit you have left is the one coming out of that box of wine in your trunk, Elara said, signaling to the security detail. The gate is open, the lawyers are hungry, and the scumbag era is officially in collections. Goodbye, Martha. Don't trip on the way out. Liability insurance doesn't cover family.
Second cousin once removed? Martha squawked, her face turning the color of expired ham. I held you as a baby! And I've had the therapy bills to prove it, Elara retorted. Turns out you're basically just a lady who lived in my house and stole my parents' silverware. Julian signaled the guards. Gentlemen, please escort this stranger once removed and her collection of human participation trophies to the curb. Mark, leave the shrimp. It's been vetted for quality. You haven't. Mark tried to make a run for a mini quiche, but a guard intercepted him with a move that looked like professional wrestling. My Dogecoin! My legacy! He wailed as he was hoisted by his belt loops. Vanessa attempted a final, dramatic feint. I'm losing consciousness! The lack of luxury is killing me! It's not the lack of luxury, Vanessa, Elara called out as the gates began to hiss shut. It's the lack of a script. The show is over. Gary's waiting in the gutter. The end. If you enjoyed this story and want Queen Liz to create more content like this, please leave a like and comment to this video. Also, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. Queen Liz would be ever so grateful. Also, you can find Queen Liz's book, Pocketful of Poetry, formerly a short book of poems, on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble.